The Kobayashi Maru, cheating the system. Here's where it all starts. Before Kirk ever sat in the captain's chair, he was already bending the rules in ways that would get most people kicked out of school. The Kobayashi Maru is Starfleet Academy's infamous no-win scenario, a simulation designed so that no matter what you do, you lose. The whole point is to see how you handle failure. Kirk took the test twice, failed both times, and then did something nobody else had the nerve to do. He broke into the system and reprogrammed it so he could win. Now here's where the luck kicks in. By any reasonable standard, that should have ended his career before it started. Instead, the Academy gave him a commendation for original thinking. That's the moment that set the tone for everything that followed. Kirk learned that the rules didn't really apply to him the same way they applied to everyone else, and the universe kept proving him right. In the Kelvin Timeline reboot, he pulled a similar stunt and actually did face a disciplinary hearing. But then Nero showed up, blew up half of Starfleet, and Kirk ended up getting promoted to captain anyway. The man couldn't catch a bad break if he tried. The Corbomite maneuver, bluffing a god. Out in deep space, the Enterprise got stopped dead by a massive alien vessel called the Phasaerus, commanded by a being named Balok. Spock ran the numbers and basically said, "Yeah, we're done." The ship was completely outmatched. Balok gave them a countdown to destruction, and that was supposed to be that. Kirk's response? He made something up on the spot. He told Balok that all Starfleet ships carry a substance called Corbomite, a totally fictional material that would reflect any destructive energy back at the attacker. Pure bluff. No science behind it whatsoever. The luck here is almost embarrassing. For this to work, Balok had to be the specific kind of alien who would pause and think about it rather than just firing. And it turned out Balok was actually conducting his own test of humanity's character the whole time. He was lonely, curious, and more interested in making friends than making enemies. If Balok had been even slightly more trigger-happy, the Enterprise would have been vaporized and Kirk's bluff would have gone down in history as the dumbest last words ever spoken. Instead, they ended up sharing drinks together. Only Kirk. The Arena, maneuvering a cannon on an alien planet. This one is genuinely wild. Kirk gets transported to a barren planet by a powerful alien race called the Metrons, who force him into a one-on-one fight to the death with a Gorn captain. The Gorn is basically a giant lizard man, stronger, tougher, and built for exactly this kind of fight. Kirk, by comparison, is just a regular human guy. So Kirk does what Kirk does. He scouts the planet, figures out that the rocks contain sulfur, charcoal, and saltpeter, and builds a working cannon out of bamboo, on an alien planet, from scratch, during a fight. Here's the thing though. Scientists who've actually looked at this have pointed out that this probably shouldn't have worked. Primitive gunpowder made from random rocks often doesn't generate enough force to fire anything, and a bamboo tube used as a gun barrel would, under most circumstances, just explode in your hands. The fact that it worked suggests the planet's materials were almost accidentally perfect for Kirk's specific solution. The charcoal was apparently just the right quality. The bamboo was apparently just strong enough. The whole thing reads less like a survival plan and more like the universe quietly stacking the deck in his favor. The Apple, surviving everything while everyone else dies. On the planet Gamma Trianguli 6, Kirk's team beams down to what looks like paradise and immediately starts dying. Poisonous flowers, lightning strikes, exploding rocks. The planet is basically trying to kill everyone, and it succeeds, taking out several members of the security team. Kirk somehow walks through all of it without a scratch. Meanwhile, up in orbit, the ship is being slowly dragged toward the planet by a machine god called Vale. Scotty is burning through every ounce of power just to keep them from crashing. The plan to destroy Vale by blasting it with phasers was a massive gamble. If Vale had even a little more power in reserve than Scotty could drain, the Enterprise goes down and everyone dies. It worked, but only barely. Kirk essentially bet the entire ship on the hope that his phasers were just slightly more powerful than an alien god's energy reserves. That's not strategy. That's a coin flip with a starship. Mirror, mirror. Surviving an assassination culture. An ion storm hit at just the right moment during a transporter sequence and swapped Kirk and his crew with their counterparts from a parallel universe. The Terran Empire, where everyone advances their career by murdering their boss. Kirk found himself in a society where assassination is basically standard HR policy. The luck required to survive this is staggering. First, the ion storm had to be happening in both universes simultaneously at the exact same location. The odds of that are essentially impossible. Then, when Mirror Chekhov tried to have Kirk killed, he was only saved because another crewman jumped in. Not out of loyalty, but because he wanted the promotion for himself. Kirk survived an assassination attempt because someone else was being greedy at exactly the right moment. And then there's Mirror Spock. In a universe full of ruthless killers, Kirk happened to encounter the one person who found the whole system wasteful and decided helping Kirk get home was the logical move. If Mirror Spock had been even slightly more conventional, Kirk never makes it back. The Wrath of Khan and the Search for Spock, trading the Enterprise for Spock. Khan Noonien. Singh was a genetically engineered superhuman who had spent years obsessing over Kirk. He had tactical superiority, a personal vendetta, and a weapon of mass creation. Kirk survived the Mutara Nebula battle through genuinely brilliant three-dimensional thinking. That part was earned. But the ship only escaped the Genesis shockwave because Spock walked into a radioactive chamber and died fixing the warp drive. Kirk's luck, in this case, was having a friend willing to die for him. Then, in the search for Spock, Kirk lost everything: his ship, his career, his son, and still managed to pull off a resurrection. He lured the Klingon boarding party onto the Enterprise and blew it up. The luck here is almost comedic. The Klingon commander Krug sent his entire crew over to the Enterprise, leaving his own ship basically unguarded. The explosion killed everyone on board while Kirk's team had just enough time to beam down to the planet. And then the stolen Klingon ship's transporter still worked well enough to pull Kirk and an unconscious Spock off a crumbling cliff. He blew up his own ship and came out of it with a resurrected best friend and a new vessel. Only Kirk. Delta Vega, the most improbable meeting in history. In the Kelvin timeline, after being marooned on an ice planet by an emotionally compromised Spock, Kirk stumbled through a blizzard and found a cave. In that cave was Spock Prime, an elderly version of Spock from the original timeline who had been stranded there by Nero, on the same planet, within walking distance. Then, also within walking distance, was a Federation outpost where Montgomery Scott happened to be stationed. The probability of any of this happening by chance is so low, it barely registers as a number. Kirk landed on a planet the size of a moon, in a specific region, and found the two people who could give him everything he needed: future knowledge, a revolutionary beaming formula, and a way back to the Enterprise. Without this sequence of coincidences, Kirk dies on an ice planet as a cadet, and Earth gets destroyed. The whole thing feels less like luck and more like the universe refusing to let the wrong timeline stick. Into Darkness. Dying and coming back because of a tribble. This one might be the most absurd entry on the list. Kirk died. Actual clinical death from radiation poisoning after manually fixing the warp core. No amount of tactical genius gets you out of that one. Except Dr. McCoy had been running experiments on a dead tribble using Khan's blood, and it turned out the blood of a genetically engineered superhuman could bring dead tissue back to life. Kirk was resurrected because his enemy happened to have magic blood, and because Bones happened to be testing it on a small fuzzy animal at exactly the right time. There's no skill involved here. There's no leadership or unorthodox thinking. Kirk just happened to die in a universe where his specific enemy was a walking medical miracle. That's it. That's the whole thing. The Nexus. Death is optional when you're Kirk. Kirk's death on the Enterprise B wasn't really a death at all. He got absorbed into the Nexus, a timeless energy ribbon where you live in a perfect simulation of your happiest moments, outside of time entirely. He stayed there for roughly 80 years without aging, without knowing it, until Jean-Luc Picard showed up and pulled him out. The Nexus essentially functions as a save point. You can leave at any moment in time to go fix whatever needs fixing. Kirk used it to help stop a madman from destroying a star system. It's the ultimate cheat code. Not just cheating death, but cheating time itself. His actual death on Viridian 3, caused by a collapsing bridge, felt almost deliberately anticlimactic. After everything, the bluffs, the cannons, the resurrections, the literal time travel, he went out because a bridge fell on him. His last words were, "It was fun." And honestly, given the career he had, that tracks perfectly. Amok Time, faking his own death to survive Spock. This one is almost too good. Spock gets hit with Pon farr, the Vulcan mating drive that essentially turns him into a different person, and ends up in a ritual fight to the death on Vulcan with Kirk as his opponent. Not a simulation, not a bluff. His best friend, in a blood rage, trying to actually kill him. Kirk gets strangled unconscious with a weapon called an On Woon and is declared dead. Except he isn't, because McCoy had secretly injected him with a drug that mimicked death so convincingly that even Spock believed it. Kirk survived being killed by his best friend because his doctor quietly cheated on his behalf without telling anyone. The luck here is that McCoy had exactly the right drug, administered it at exactly the right moment, and nobody on Vulcan thought to double-check whether the dead guy was actually dead. The Gamesters of Triskelion, betting the entire crew on a 3-on-1 fight. Kirk, Uhura, and Chekhov get abducted by 3 disembodied alien brains who use humanoids as gladiators for sport. After multiple failed escape attempts, Kirk does what Kirk does. He bets everything on one hand. He challenges the providers to a wager. If he can defeat 3 of their best fighters simultaneously, they free all the thralls on the planet. If he loses, he and his crew become permanent gladiators. He wins, but only barely, and only because of a string of lucky breaks. One opponent makes a critical error with a spear. Another gets taken out partly through an opponent's own mishap. And the final fighter, Shauna, who had been assigned to train Kirk, hesitates at the crucial moment because Kirk had spent the whole episode charming her into developing feelings for him. She couldn't bring herself to finish it. Kirk survived a 3-on-1 deathmatch because one of his opponents fell in love with him. That's not a strategy. That's just being Kirk. A piece of the action. Accidentally becoming a crime boss. The Enterprise visits a planet whose entire culture was accidentally modeled after a book about 1920s. Chicago gangsters left behind by a previous starship. The whole planet is basically one giant mob war. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy beam down and immediately get captured by rival gang leaders who both want Federation weapons. Kirk's solution was to just become the biggest crime boss on the planet. He bluffed his way into a position of total authority over every gang on the surface, played the mob bosses against each other, and had the Enterprise stun entire city blocks from orbit to demonstrate who was really in charge. It worked completely. The luck is that this only functions because the planet's entire population had been culturally programmed to respect whoever sits at the top of the criminal hierarchy, and Kirk happened to be dealing with people whose entire worldview came from a gangster novel. Against any other culture, this plan falls apart immediately. The city on the edge of forever. The timeline fixed itself around him. McCoy, out of his mind on an accidental drug overdose, jumps through an ancient time portal called the Guardian of Forever and lands in 1930s Earth, where he saves a woman named Edith Keeler from a car accident. That one act erases the Enterprise from existence entirely. Kirk and Spock jump through after him to fix it. The luck here is almost cruel. Kirk falls in love with Edith Keeler while they're stuck in the past waiting for McCoy to show up. Then Spock figures out that the pivotal moment is her death. She has to die in that car accident, or the timeline stays broken. Kirk has to stand there and physically stop McCoy from saving her. He does it. The timeline snaps back. The Enterprise reappears. Everyone goes home. But the luck is in the mechanics. The Guardian of Forever just happened to exist, just happened to still be active, and the solution just happened to be something Kirk could physically execute in the right place at the right time. 1 second earlier or later, and McCoy saves her anyway. The universe threaded an impossibly narrow needle, and Kirk was standing in exactly the right spot to make it work.